it should be recording, but you should be good to go.
We should be good? Okay.
To make sure that we're recording. All right, it's 5 o'clock. Welcome, everybody. I'm going to call this meeting of the East Haddam Board of Fire Commissioners to order for June 1st, 2021. And first, I'd like to welcome Tim Reynolds to the commission.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for your willingness to serve and filling out our group.
Thank you. It's a great honor. Thank you.
Well, you were one of 3 very qualified applicants, and I'm glad that the first selectman and other select people decided on your application. Everyone was had good qualifications, but you're it, kid. Pressure's on.
Pressure's on. All right. I work better under pressure, so we're good.
I just wanted
Thank
to
you.
mention that I imagine you're aware of a email that was presented to the selectmen regarding their selection of who was going to fill your spot. Are you familiar with that?
I did. I got the reappointment dates and everything.
Okay.
Right.
The gist of what I got was, they weren't grieving or complaining about the individual, but the fact that you weren't a non-fire person. So I just want to make sure that everybody knows that there is a huge list of prior commissioners that have been affiliated with the fire department, and I'm unaware of any conflicts that have arisen from those people serving on our commission. And I assure you that this commission, up until right now, has been nothing but looking out for the best interest of the fire department, the taxpayers, and the citizens. So I kind of take it a little personal when there's an email like that, when we've been nothing but supportive and attentive to any requests or issues. So let's try to do a good job and prove that that email was unnecessary.
Well, I intend to do the best job possible for everybody here.
Thank you. All right, so next on the agenda, acceptance of the minutes. So you'll be abstaining, I imagine, so it's up to you, kid.
I make a motion to accept the minutes that were sent out last night.
Okay, I'll second that. Any discussion?
Nope, not with me.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Minutes are accepted. We have a few bills.
Only a few this week, which is very nice. The first packet was paid the week of April. Wow. Yeah, 4/24. I thought my weeks were way off. Included E.J. Boughton for the trucks, they're listed at the top.
Save lives, what's that?
Common Sense, that's for gloves, no, that's for sanitizer, I believe. Napa,
Pretty straightforward,
yep.
$47. I don't know what this is.
That was when you submitted them, it was a, what's it say on it? I'm not asking for, amplified charger?
Yes, so the amplified charger was to provide a station alert system for the fire department, company number 2. What it does is it takes the pager and all its alerts and alerting features that it sounds off with, and it projects it all throughout the firehouse so that it's identifiable that there is a call for the town of East Haddam versus, the town of Bosworth, the town of East Hampton or something like that. So it signifies to any firefighter in the building that there is a call for the town of East Haddam, and they should be prepared to respond to the corresponding location.
Thank you.
And then the ones that were submitted last week, first one's for $615 from Firematic for a harness.
New York City style harness. What's that?
That's
Those
when
are-
you step
Is that the
into?
Gemter harness or whatever? Yeah, so we have some plus size people in the fire department and they don't fit in the common size Gemter harnesses. These harnesses are used for
Gemter.
RIT and other purposes as well as bailout.
Thank you.
And this is for the motor on Marine 3 from Reynolds, $400 and change.
So this $400 is to tell us the motor's no good, or is this to fix it?
Fix it. There was a water pump that needed to be replaced. Obviously, parts and labor.
Oh yeah, test ran, okay, good. So it's back in service.
Yes, back in operation.
Thank you.
We actually took it out last week, ran it in Lower Moodus Reservoir for probably a good solid hour, and ran fine.
Good.
This is more sanitizing wipes from Common Sense. And this is for engine 115 with the wheel speed sensor, and that was $500 and change. That's it.
That's good.
That's a good day.
Less than last month.
Yes.
Any questions on bills?
No question.
What's your pleasure?
My pleasure is a motion to accept the bills as paid.
Motion to accept.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the bills. Any discussion?
No.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Pay the bills. Budget recap. Jiffy, would you
Yes.
cover that?
Just gonna go on our single sheet, Tim. That's in front.
That,
That's the one we concentrate on unless there's a lot of questions that do pop up. Obviously, we're down to the last month of this year's budget. Regular time, we're right in line here at 90%. Overtime, as we have noted before, because of the loss of some members earlier and the new folks, we are at 172%. The next high one is building maintenance. Again, that was another unexpected expense because of the plumbing issue that we had, which turned into a major fiasco. So hopefully next year that can get back down to where it belongs in the 20,000 range.
Everything's flushing now?
As far as I know, yes.
And the rooms are being used? All of them are being used, right? So we have a good,
I think the ladies' room at Company One, I
The shower, I think, is the only thing still out of service. Yeah.
okay,
Other than that, the toilets haven't had any reported issues.
okay, good. I'll bring that up again under building report.
Okay, good. Supplies, that line item, I've been watching it. Everything under there is charged appropriately as far as going there, other than the medical supplies, which in our coming budget, we will have a separate line item for medical supplies, so that should hopefully come back down as well. Electricity, bottle gas, huge, 197% plus, so that's kind of out of our hands. Again, because of the changes in the career staff, that uniform budget is up. Again, expected, and equipment for career is up. Hopefully we should be back in line coming up. We are down to $31,690.11 left for the year. So the last month we're in pretty good shape. I submitted bills again Tuesday, and I know I've talked to you, Brian, at the executive meeting. We had a real quick discussion till I had to go out about, after I submit Tuesday, usually Dawn will send out the recap for us.
Yeah.
And then we can know where to go as far as budget, as far as, the motor
Right.
and the, gear. I think those are the two priorities between everybody that I've heard.
Mhm.
So, so we can, oh, you got
I
that.
got that.
So we can, touch base on that after next Tuesday if you wish. And we'll bring up the motor under equipment later on?
Yeah.
Right, Bruce?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So that's my budget recap.
All right. Don't know that we need a motion to accept anything there, so we'll move on to, thank you, Jiffy.
You're welcome.
Move on to old business.
Mostly old
Some of
business.
it will come up again after,
Right.
just like we talked about the bathrooms, the outboard motor. Do you have anything besides those items?
No.
Okay, visitor participation. I want to thank Donnie Lee from the town of Colchester, a adjoining town and a mutual aid partner, to join us here tonight, and I appreciate your time, and we'll attempt not to keep you too long. I asked Donnie Lee to come in here to discuss how Colchester got to the point where they are along their expanse into the paid combination departments. You know, our history has been, since 1931, it's been a volunteer organization. And in 2005, according to the best report that I've got here, is when we hired our first paid fireman. So the history is a volunteer fire department. For whatever reason, through, you know, lack of volunteerism, you know, falling off, people having very busy lives, you know, the old timers moving on to, well, whatever they moved on to. Yeah, there you go.
No digging.
You know, for different reasons, we've needed to take on paid folks because the volunteers aren't in town necessarily. They're working. They have very busy lives. We've got families to take care of, jobs to be responsible to. So I just thought if you could give us a little snapshot of what Colchester experienced. It's a similar thing. You're probably ahead of us. You're ahead of us in the population. You've got, you know, a major road passing through your town. You know, the demands perhaps on your department have been greater earlier. But could you tell us what the history is? Like, when was your department, when did you go to a combination?
Sure, and thank you for having me come up. Colchester hired his first career firefighter was Dan Rowland. He was hired in 1974 as our first career guy. And he was at what we called back then Station 1, which is in the center of town. Things are a little different. We were doing, back then, I think we did 240 calls, something in that area, 230, 240, back in the late 70s, mid to late 70s. And so that kind of set the tone, but a lot of what early on, and even when I came on the job in 1986, I was hired at a company too, Westchester. Our second career guy was hired in 83, I believe it was. End of 82, beginning of 83. Left, and then I ended up getting hired. But our primary job was not only to get the apparatus out, but we had a very regimented structure. That we did everything from change the oil on apparatus to, in the late 90s, I built 4 pieces of apparatus in our firehouse. Basically almost frame-off restorations of pumpers, a ladder truck, a hazmat truck, a service truck. So, I mean, that's how deep we actually got. And I'm not advocating anybody else does that, I'm just where we were. So our job was building maintenance, report writing, maintaining inventories, that type of stuff, and of course, response to calls. In 1992, we took over the R2 ambulance for the town of Colchester. It was inter-county. Without getting into the politics, the town was actually paying for 2 people to man the ambulance during the day, even though the ambulance was a nonprofit 401c3. Things got cloudy, things weren't working out so well, so the ambulance ended up coming to the fire department. With that, those 2 positions came over to the firehouse. When they came over, we said, whoa, they're coming over here, they've got to be dual trained, firefighter, EMT. So that brought our staffing up to 4. We pretty much stayed at 4 people right up until 2004, 2005. So we've been adding, we just hired our next 2 recently. So we're up to firefighters, we have 7 firefighters on the floor, a lieutenant who is also our our health and safety officer by rank and job description. Myself as the career deputy chief of operations, a career fire chief, and a career administrative assistant in the front office. But she does a whole lot of stuff, up to and including ambulance billing and all that nonsense. So we've grown. Has not been easy. If anybody ever said it was going to be easy, it's been kind of crazy. And if I could just back up a little bit for the people who don't know my background, I came to Colchester, like I said, in 1986. I was there as a cop. I served as a cop for 6 years. Decided I didn't want to do that. I became a firefighter. Been here 33 years. August will be 34 if I get back on the line. I am currently the Deputy Chief of Operations. I am also the Charter President of IAF Local 3831, having served as the President for 12 years, having successfully negotiated 4 consecutive contracts without any arbitration. Matter of fact, our biggest arguments and fights during our bargaining things was who's going to buy the pizza for the next meeting. So we took turns buying the pizza. So I've been there, I've served every rank from firefighter, career lieutenant, assistant chief, deputy chief of operations, where I currently sit. If you have questions, I hope I can kind of answer any questions you have, where we're at, how we got there, the good, the bad, and the ugly in between, and there has been a little bit of that too. So who
do you answer to, and who do the paid staff answer to?
Okay, so good question. So very clear with us. We follow a very strong hierarchy. And again, just for people that may or may not understand, fire service is a paramilitary organization. In my department, I would tell you up until maybe the last 6 or 8 weeks, there's been no question of that. So the chief of department is the chief of department. He answers directly to the selectmen. My boss is the selectmen. I answer to the chief. I have an assistant chief under me who answers me, assistant chief of fire. I also have an assistant chief of EMS. Those 2 assistant chiefs report directly to me. I give them direction and control. So it is clearly an organizational structure with span of control and direct communication. The one thing that we do not tolerate is any end runs. I had somebody that just tried that, it didn't work out so well for them. So if you're a lieutenant, you answer your captain. Your captain can't answer the problem, solve that problem, or if the captain has a question, he can come to his assistant chief to get direction. There's a lot of communication that goes on up and down the chain of command. Not to say that a lieutenant may handle something in the field, but if he handles it, he better be reporting what he did to his captain so his captain understands what's going on. Now the captain can intervene or say, okay, I agree with your actions, go forward. And it's that way all the way up the chain of command. I expect my assistant chiefs to report to me and that I give them direction and control what I expect them to do, or if I have a project or something happen. So it's clearly hierarchy, and that hierarchy is definitely enforced. We had some people that went outside the chain of command, tried to do end runs. That's not healthy. That is bad juju in the fire service. Well, bad
What's an
juju in
end
the
run?
military.
What's an end run?
When you do not go to your immediate supervisor, you go around your immediate supervisor. I call it the mommy-daddy syndrome.
Okay.
You know, daddy's gonna say no, so you go to mommy to get the answer you want. You don't do that. I mean, that creates confusion, it creates hate and discontent, disrespectful. In my organization, the person who did that was brought up on charges of insubordination and was suspended for 90 days. Removed from the department. It cannot be tolerated. Just not good. Because you can't have it, because once something like that breeds, then it ends up out on the emergency scene, it ends up within the organization down below, within the subordinates, and you have chaos. And none of that is good. So we're pretty tight. We have policies, procedures, directives, and guidelines that guide us through much of our business day and our operations, but at the end of the day, it's a paramilitary organization, and it's got to be run that way. So, I don't know if that confuses you or...
No, it's pretty clear to me. And that's why I suggest strongly that we ask all members of the fire department, paid and/or volunteer, to run everything through the chief. And the chief, as is in
or
the...
his or her designate, as dictated through the chain of command. Yeah, and again, I don't know. We have job descriptions from everything from the probationary firefighter, well, actually from a cadet, to probationary firefighter, right up to chief of the department, and it clearly states your level of authority and supervision given, level of supervision received. So again, there's no question as to who you supervise and who's supervising you and what your span of control or span of authority is. And as long as everybody stays within the gates, it works.
It works, exactly, yeah.
I don't know if anybody here's been in the military, but I don't think a private first class would go circumvent his first sergeant and go to the sergeant major and ask to have something done. It just, that just won't fly, you know?
It's not the
Probably
way it
not
works.
great.
So chief is a noun that means the head or leader of an organized body of people, the person highest in authority. So we have to have what Donnie is describing, and I'm looking at you, thank you for being here as a member of the Board of Selectmen. And we're looking to structure things the way that it's being described here by another town that...
And I don't think we're unique. I think if you go to any, I don't care what part of it you go to, it's again, fire service in the United States of America is a paramilitary organization. Has been since, I would say it definitely was reinforced at the end of World War II. In the 40s, 50s, and 60s, we built that structure. The structure is built because there has to be accountability. And again, like I said, there's policies, procedures, directives that we follow that kind of guide us in our day-to-day stuff. But when you start playing outside that box, that's where people get hurt. That's where people get killed. That's where bad things happen. And if you look at an accident or an accident continuum, an accident's not an accident. An accident is a failure of systems long before the incident ever took place. And when you start looking at it, a lot of it is freelancing, not following policies, not following directives, operating outside your scope of your job description or your scope of operation, not following the chain of command. In the fire service, that's where we see guys getting lost, trapped, disoriented, killed, or seriously injured in the fire service. And it's you can go to NIOSH reports and you can find these over and over, and it's the same six. Doesn't matter, the top six are always the same. Maybe in a little bit different order depending upon the incident, but the top six are the top six. And it's usually somebody freelancing is the term they use. But that's operating outside your scope, outside your chain of command, outside your job description or your level of responsibility, and if you cause harm to yourself or someone else, it's not good.
So you may not be unique, but it seems that we may be, the way we're operating right this second. We need to get our paramilitary chain of command in place.
That's called growing pains.
Exactly,
It's called growing pains.
exactly.
I just have a question. Chief, nice to meet you. I don't know that we've ever met. My name's Liam. I'm a full-timer for East Haddam.
How you doing?
Heard a lot about you, a lot of good things, but glad to finally put a face to the name. So, just for clarification purposes, for my own understanding, you guys have career fire chief, deputy chief, and so on and so forth.
Right.
And you guys are a combination department. How do the two organizations integrate in regards to command staff and how they
Okay,
operate?
so let me back up. So we have not always had a career chief and career deputy chief. Much of my career, I answered to an assistant, to a volunteer chief. Our department was all the chief officers, all the officers, with the exception of the safety captain, were volunteers. So for the first 2002, we got our career chief. So, 95, 17 years of my time there, we answered to a volunteer fire chief. But again, it was nothing has really changed, just the face has changed. The policy hasn't changed. The way we run the operation hasn't changed. Is that now it's a little bit easier because he's there and we can grab him, you know. But even going back, if the career staff needed something or whatever, we would go to our captain. Our captain would communicate that with the chief or deputy chief. Back then, most of the time it was Gary Avery, who happened to be worked at the school district, so we could get a hold of him easily. But it very formal chain of command up, very formal coming down. I will say that, and I think the tempo was set early on when Danny first got hired. Danny came out of the Navy, having served in Vietnam, so he was our first career guy, paramilitary. Our chief at the time, Jess McMinn, served Vietnam. I had come home and was there. Gary Avery was on nuclear subs, United States Navy. Was supposed to have been on the Thresher and got reassigned before she went down. So early on in all of this, we had a very strong paramilitary leadership with a history of paramilitary or military service. So it was easy. It was a very easy transition for everybody. But yeah, I mean, a lot of it comes down to, and I will tell you now, we have some struggles. I don't know if anybody, and I will let you know that our chief has been removed for cause. He's no longer the chief. We have an acting chief then. Our new acting chief is not good with communication, so we're having some bumps. But we'll work through those. And communication is huge. It is in both directions. And if there isn't good communication going up and down the chain, and I'll tell you, there's nothing that drives me more crazy than texting. I hate it. If you want to talk to me, call me. Let's have a conversation. But yeah, that's an anecdotal type of thing. Communications is key. And there has to be that trust and communication up and down the line. It really has to be there. As far as career staff, volunteer staff, I will tell you, again, having been a volunteer in the organization early on and a paid man, as was Danny Rowland. Danny Rowland was a volunteer there. Matter of fact, early on in my career, we had to be volunteers in order to be paid, which was actually against the law. But anyhow, there's always going to be a handful, maybe less than a handful, that like to go in and go, keep slapping it. I can tell you, as the deputy chief, my assistant chief, and our current chief, will not be tolerated, okay? I tell the guys point blank, volunteers that are there can't do their job without us. Very honestly, we can't do our job without them, okay? Because if we don't have the 6 or 8 that show up to give us a hand during the day, we're carrying the whole load. And we can't carry that load of 2,300 runs a year. Can't do it on our own. So we need them. But in the same token, the volunteers need us too, because but we don't have the volunteers that we used to have. I mean, when I first went to Colchester, right up until, I'm gonna say, early 90s, a fire during the day, we put 30 guys through the door. We were Yantic. Yantic came to Colchester today, 9 guys. They were getting ready to send us another engine with another 7. They can do that all day long. You send you 30 guys if you call it. Work for USPS. Second shift, third shift, so they have a constant rotation. That was the rotation that we had early on, 80s, 90s, right up to late 90s, early 2000. We lost Electric Boat. We lost Pratt & Whitney Aircraft. We lost the guys that were working second and third shift at different factories around town. Brownell, all around. You know, people were working around. They worked third shift or second shift. They were around during the day. The guys that were working around during the day, we had a lot of our guys were all career contractors, electrical people, building construction, cement guys doing cement work, with contract, construction work, machine operators. They shut their machines down, grab their tools, throw them on the box, and come to the firehouse. Those days are gone. So we don't have that anymore. We're transitioning. We know that. And I will say the other part of this is that everybody loses sight, and if I could go back just a moment and I'll shut up. Career guys need the volunteers. The volunteers needed the career guys. That goes without saying. But the community needs both. And unfortunately, I'm going to tell you from where I stand, and I'm watching what's going on. I'm in a little bit of a unique position. I serve at the state level. I'm all over the state. I'm teaching at two regional fire schools, county coordinator. I'm out there. Too many communities are turning their backs on their volunteers. The volunteers are not appreciated. And if we keep going down this road, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. You can't afford to put 30 of those guys on the floor. You can't have 2 guys in the firehouse doing the job. No, you need 6, 8, 10 guys per shift ready to go out the door. Why? Because you can't just drive one truck out the door. It doesn't do you any good. You can't just send 2 people into a building. That doesn't work. Who can afford that? I live in the community I serve. My taxes are high enough. I don't need any more. And I fill one of them slots. But we can't afford to put 6, 8, 10 more guys on. So you better nurture the people that are behind you. Yeah, you need those guys. You need them there because they got to do all the other stuff that the volunteers can't do or fill those gaps that the volunteers can't fill. But, it's somehow you got to come together. You got to work together. You got to build a relationship together. Understand the hierarchy. Be respectful. And follow that up the chain. And it can work. It works. Our department, it works. But again, we have 0 tolerance. One of my volunteers step out of line and we're going to stomp on him. One of the career guys step out of line. I can tell you, he'd be sitting in my office. Can't be tolerated. Not at any level, because we all need to be doing the job together. It's teamwork. It's the only way it's going to get done.
Can you clarify for me, you keep going from volunteer and career, volunteer, career, and I got a little lost as far as involving the hierarchy. Career, chief,
Yep.
deputy chief,
Career.
assistant chief?
Volunteer. So the
Which is
assistant chief
volunteer?
of EMS, assistant chief of fire, captain of fire, captain of EMS, lieutenant of fire, lieutenant of EMS are all volunteers. So, and
But
then
your chief and deputy chief are career?
our career staff, yes.
Okay, that's what I didn't know.
Yeah. That's new. I was promoted to career deputy 8 years ago. 8 years, something like that. Coming up on 8 years ago. I had served as the volunteer assistant chief and the volunteer deputy chief, but was promoted within the union to that position. 2 contracts ago. So it's 8 years. It'll be 8 years this year. This coming up July will be 8 years. Starting now.
Liam, did you have another question?
No,
Eric, you had a question?
thanks for your insight.
Chief, thank you very much
Yeah.
for coming. Just Bruce, you mentioned how it's a unique situation that East Haddam might be in. Again, my full-time department, I would say East Haddam isn't unique at all with that. I can name 2 departments with that. And again, as far as the hierarchy goes, I think the chief and I and Ray and pretty much everybody in the volunteers have had a good open line of communications and whatnot. I've reached out to Brian a few times and Ray and stuff like that. Stuff gets through the cracks. We're all human. It is what it is. That also being said, in the city of Meriden, where I work full-time, we have a volunteer fire department that has a volunteer fire chief and their own structure. Within the volunteer fire department, they answer to each other. Our most junior guy in the city of Meriden has more say on a fire ground or fire scene than the volunteer fire chief. Westport, where Rob Lenoy's works, pretty much the same thing. They have volunteers there and they report directly to the fire chief, and then they also have their own rank structure within the volunteers. I spoke with Mr. Lenoy prior to coming here. Their career staff has more say than any one of their volunteers, whether it's an officer or not. Like I said, that being said, I'm not advocating for something like that. I'm just pointing out that East Haddam is not a unique town by any means when it comes to the structure. I have been here working for the town of East Haddam Municipal Fire Department for 8 years roughly. I've been under Mark Walter, Emmett Lyman, and now Rob Smith. I think one of the biggest things I've had, and previous career staff members have also had, I think even current ones still have, our biggest concern is who do we report to? I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again tonight. The career staff, I feel, are the misled, not misled, what's the word? We're the
I guess misguided or
Mis-
misled would be.
misguided and misled children of this town, where everybody wants us, but wants us to do stuff, but nobody wants to claim us. That's basically where I'm coming from with this. I know my previous supervisors here have gone to Mark Walter and Emmett and Rob, looking for a clear chain of command. We've had a chain of command. Our current career staff chain of command is out of whack, and it has been for about 8 months. We have requested a position been filled. I think you guys are well aware of it. And what would help us on our end is if that position was filled. And that's the captain's position. You know, in past we've had conversations of career staff captain would be reporting to the chief. Obviously, he's currently Chief Alt. And then I believe, and I don't know if it's still even up on the board over at Company One, is that there was a flow chart of how the career staff and who they responded to, or reported to. It was the first selectman to the chief. Off to the side was the career staff. We were completely separate from everything else.
So, if I get, so the career staff report to the selectmen?
So
That's in
I'm
there, yeah.
so I'm gonna.
Part of it, but
So in a recent conversation I have had, we are town employees.
So are we.
We work for the town of East Haddam, and we are not part of the East Haddam Volunteer Fire Department. That's how it was explained to me, and it's actually on a video.
Wow.
Therefore, your invitation.
Okay, so,
Now you
I'm
see.
sorry, that just kind of threw me back. Okay, so, and what he's describing is the reason I just gave somebody 90 days suspension prior prior to having my heart attack, for circumventing. The hierarchy is within the fire service, and I understand what you went through with the captain. You lost, I understand you lost the captain's position. Gotta be careful. I know that individual was way outside the chain of command, because he bragged about it to me many times. Again, if he was in my organization, he'd be gone. He would have been written up, suspended, and gone for operating outside the chain of command. I can't stress, I mean, you're a American firefighter. Chief Struble, no, was, right?
Wallingford.
Wallingford. Who's your chief under now?
Chief, Ken Morgan.
Ken Morgan, okay, all right. If a firefighter or a lieutenant went past their captain or the assistant chief and went up and sat at the chief's desk and bitched about something or demanded something, what would happen to that individual? First off, they probably get punted back down the stairs onto the floor.
Honestly, depending on the issue, I've gone to the chief myself for issues.
You've circumvented your chain of command and gone around your captain and lieutenant?
Yes, I have.
You have not been disciplined?
I have not, and there's a reason for it, because our chief has an open door policy.
You still need to follow chain of command.
There's certain things that the chain of command, you have the right to go around. If you feel that there's an issue, you have the right to go around. It's even like that in the military. My boss, who's a master sergeant in the U.S. Air Force, has also gone around. So, under certain circumstances, you do have the right and option to go around.
I just think that just opens. So what defines that? I mean, and it just becomes the child that doesn't want to talk to, because I know if I go to my lieutenant.
The chief makes that decision as to whether he wants to hear it, or he can go back down to your officer or the captain or whatever it is. So for me, I work for a lieutenant, then I have an assistant chief that I report to. At no point in time, unless it's a station matter, does my station captain get involved. So I would go to my lieutenant, my assistant chief, and the deputy chief, and or the chief, depending on what the matter is, and what the severity of the matter is.
And you can circumvent those at any time.
As long as it's justifiable.
Tim, you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question and kind of a comment. I've known Donnie Lee for all of my adult life, and came from a volunteer service that was run by Ray Clark, and you remember Ray Clark was
Yeah.
the top of the paramilitary volunteer service. He ran a good boat. But my question is about money. So you have a paid service in the town of Meriden, and we have a paid service in East Haddam. What is your budget for your people, for your entire organization in the town of Meriden?
What is the fire department budget?
Yeah, compared to what our budget is. I just want to know.
The last number I heard, and don't quote me on this, please, because I typically don't get involved in the budgets as a firefighter in the city of Meriden. The last number I heard was about 6 or 7 million for the
East
fire.
Haddam?
I could be off. It could be higher. I honestly don't know.
Okay, so you have a very large group with a lot of
We have 100.
money put into it, and et cetera, which is great. It's a big city. We're not in that position here, obviously. And the other thing is reporting upward to, as Donnie Lee explained, into a paramilitary and not skipping by certain people and going directly to your chief or your captain or up the ladder. Do any of the selectmen have firefighter capabilities or knowledge of fire service?
We don't have selectmen. We have
Or whoever.
We have a city manager
Okay.
and a mayor who's strictly a figurehead.
Okay, so none of those people, but none of those people are firefighters, have never been firefighters, have never been a chief at a fire ground.
There was one a few years back. He was actually the volunteer.
But currently, there's nobody, right? So then if you're no, so I guess what going back to what Donnie said, if I went to the selectmen and said, we want to lay a 5-inch hose, we want to buy this 5-inch hose, would you even understand that? Would you even know what that's about? if it went to the chief, would you understand all that about fire hose and horse? And that's where the problem begins. If you're not talking to the people that have the knowledge, then you could sell that boat anywhere. And it's not that you're not doing a bad thing. You're just trying to get better equipment. You're probably trying to get more time on the fire ground, and you're working toward getting more officers. Understandable. And I think, as Donnie said, that goes on as time goes on and the place gets bigger and we need more help. I agree that that's where we should go, because it is going to someday run, the clock will run out. But as of right now, the first thing we should do is be completely transparent. I don't think that if you or anybody else, or even the chief, if he's going somewhere different than talking to you, that is not the way it should be. Because you guys have to work together. We work for the town of East Haddam, all of us. Okay, we get stipends for the job that we do, so we have a little bit of pay coming in, and we have lives, property, and each other's back. Because what goes on during the day, when you guys are on, and then when the volunteers come on, there should be some communication about what happened during that day, and that's important. And I think you guys do a great job, and I think it's awesome that we have some paid guys in town, because I've listened to that. I work nights, so it wakes me up during the day, and I hear you guys out on the road right away. Awesome. It's a great start. But maybe we could sit down better and figure that out. But not going to the chief or somebody in the fire service over fire service business. It'll get you all screwed up. That's all I have to say. I just think we have one of the selectmen here. I think that was good.
I think the second part of that is again, traditions, history, background, beat it to death, paramilitary. But the second part of that is respect and honor, okay? I know what you're saying about the city of Meriden. I know some of the history with some of the people in the volunteer group down there in Meriden. I understand that 2/3 of your organization within the fire service is career staff, and not even 1/3, one up on the hill is a volunteer organization. With that type of makeup, I can see where hierarchy, but as I said, I answer to a volunteer chief. I don't know. Some people that think they're in a career job, they're smarter or better than the guys that are doing it, but I'll tell you, I'll take some volunteer guys up against some career guys any day of the week, okay? I have ultimate respect for them. Great talents. We need to have respect for those talents. We need to respect the position. We need to work within the hierarchy of the organization. Because like I said, if you don't do that, that's going to manifest itself, whether it's openly, subconsciously. If there's an animus, or there's a lack of trust, or a lack of communication, that's going to cause a breakdown. And the breakdown may start up here, or it may start down on the ground. But it's going to affect the whole organization, and some of that can be perceived. I deal with that on a regular basis. Perception is stronger than fact. If people perceive that, one, they're not being respected, their title or their position within an organization isn't being respected, or they're being overrun, outrun, backdoored, not appreciated, those people aren't going to stick around. They're not going to stick around, and they're not going to give you 100%. And that's both sides. That's both sides of the spectrum.
To be clear, I'm not recommending, suggesting, or anything to the nature that I shouldn't be reporting to Brian or to Ray or anyway. I'm just relaying to you and to the rest of the people sitting here is that under the 3 selectmen that I've been under, in the most recent chain of command that came out, first selectman, the chief, so on and so forth. So,
right. And like I said, and I know, because I'm only next door, I'm very much aware, but I can tell you that the former captain bragged to me on many occasions about operating well outside the chain of command. I was flabbergasted. Because again, I would tell you, that person in my organization would be written up. We have a progressive discipline policy, get written up the first time, be suspended the second, 90 days out the door, and the third time they'd be gone. It'd be end of discussion. And I actually had 2 selectmen now in recent time where people went to town hall. And not only did the selectmen throw them out of the office, but called us at the firehouse. I said, I want to let you know, so-and-so was just in my office complaining about the firehouse. Come into the office. Here you go. Operating outside the chain of command. Do it again and you're going to be gone.
In their defense, they've brought up 3 different selectmen that served umpteen careers now, or terms. The consistent individual was the chief, right? You were here through all of those.
Chief every,
Except
God, would you start with Brad?
No, Sean was the chief when I first.
Okay, yeah, for,
And
yeah,
it's
half
part
and
of Mark.
half and half, yeah.
All right, so you
So
have,
Mark, yeah.
you have first selectmen that have different styles, different levels of knowledge, different willingness to jump in with both feet. Some are gonna be at a, arm's length. Some of them are gonna wanna have everything,
I would ask a question if I may interrupt.
Sure.
Does the selectman or the second selectman go up and tell the highway foreman how to put the pipe in the ground? Or what he should do, or how he should do it?
Yes, he does.
First selectman, yes. The rest of them, no.
See, again, you
I
have,
would say that,
Yes, he
okay.
does.
you have different styles in town hall.
I
So-
would say that micromanaging has never worked in any organization, whether it's in.
No matter what level you're at.
That's right, I don't care if
Not work.
whether it's industry, private business, corporations, micromanagement is a death toll to any organization or business. So I would say then there's a problem somewhere there.
So, back to. I'm
Right,
sorry.
go ahead, right.
So I think something that has not been said is, unless it's a personnel or a personal issue, then that would permit circumventing one step. What has not been said also is, by state statute and OSHA law, federal and Connecticut law, that guy right there with the 5 bugles answers to everybody. Everything. If he gets hurt, it doesn't matter if he's at work. He's responsible. Plain and simple. The selectmen haven't quite, I don't know if they've been relayed that. He's responsible. Civilly and by statute.
Yeah, he's the
What
chief.
more explanation do you need?
That's-
7-313 of the Connecticut General Statutes, 1910-156 of the OSHA standard, regulatory standard. Just lay those 2 on the table and it's pretty clear as to where you gotta go. I mean, it's.
And also by OSHA standard, 1910-157, subpart F, 156, correct. A fire brigade leader, which is what we are as a fire department, must be higher trained than his subordinates. So, you have fire one?
No,
Does Rob?
no,
Teresa?
no.
Okay. I rest my case there. I mean, it's in black and white. I don't get why this has been such an issue for years.
So to back up on what you're just saying now, last meeting I was at with, I think it was the executive board,
Yeah.
and this question came up. I told Chief I would look into it, and I talked to Linda, Rob wasn't in, and said, who reports to who? How is it working? Because nobody seems to understand this. She said, that's the million-dollar question.
The chief should report to the selectmen.
What's not being said is what Ray just said. What you just said answers every single question. What Linda said to me was, there's nothing in the job description. I've been asking for things to be put in the contract, the union contract, nothing's been put in. But the state statute overrides
Contract.
union contracts, so that really is the answer right there.
Well, I mean,
So I'm glad you brought that up, and now I have something to go back and.
now, real quick, if I may, don't get me wrong. If it's a benefits issue, he don't wanna know about it, because he knows nothing about the contract. He should know something about the contract, because he should have a copy of the contract on his phone. Go see HR in the town hall. It's a benefits problem, which is pay, health insurance, PTO, sick time, anything. That's, other than approving it, that's not his problem. Ultimately.
So you can see the problem, right?
Oh, clearly.
Okay, so, the most logical approach is that everything goes through the chief, and then you have the chain of command that has a clear structure. It can't be, here and there and everywhere. I'll give you an example, Donnie. We hired the selectmen hired an individual that didn't have the CPAT
Yeah, believe me, I was right in the middle of that.
certification.
Believe me.
So that was a mistake that the first selectman made, and he's
But back up, that was also the union that
Well, I
was
don't-
involved in that, so.
that could very well be.
Because of COVID, that was a union thing that Colchester went through with, running an exam for two hires that was agreed upon between the union, the fire chief, and the HR person at our town hall. And in fact, our test that was done exceeded all parameters, including a 1.5-mile pre-run with only 15 minutes rest before they were sent into the next part of the test. We exceeded the CPAT parameters. CPAT was not being run, so that's why that happened. And that happened with your selectmen calling, was at the time when our chief was being removed and we had an interim chief being put in, so there was a lot of dynamics that were going on there.
So my point is that the selectman hired the individual,
Yep.
and that the individual is an excellent fireman. There's no problem with his credentials or his abilities, but yet a grievance was filed. Instead of, hey, let's get together, let's talk about this, let's come up with let's not let this happen again, we deal with a grievance. So that grievance, in my mind, was a direct result of not having this proper chain of command. Someone went outside this.
Right, well, that actually brought up
So-
that brought up two issues. One, again, it was a grievance. Again, we're here behind four walls. There was a grievance filed by the members of IAFF Local 3831. However, it was 3831 who had approved the testing process, which was signed off by HR, which was signed off by our chief at the time, and the standards actually paralleled and exceeded the requirements of the current CPAT. I sat and talked with Connecticut Fire Academy, Jeff Morset at length, following this, and he said, holy shit, we couldn't run that test. Well, we did. That was the test. Our volunteers go through that test before we send them to Fire 1 now, because we're tired of spending $1,400 for a Firefighter 1 and then having them quit and us wasting money. So we're actually putting them through a physical agility to make sure they can pick stuff up and run and move rather than do that. So
my point is that, we've got one group over here making a decision without running it through,
yeah.
and presumably that would have possibly not happened, and we would have been able to, avoid
Got ahead
that.
of it. You would have got ahead of it.
So I have a quick question in regards to that. The 3831 is broken down into 4 chapters, if I remember correctly. There's the Winchester chapter, or the Salem Gardner Lake chapter, the Colchester chapter, and the East Haddam chapter, if I remember correctly, right? And the new hire was for the town of East Haddam. correct? So therefore, the shop steward from East Haddam should have been contacted in regards to the approval of the process, as it is for the municipality of the town of East Haddam, correct?
Oh, I believe, the individual tested with us.
Okay.
That's how that all,
So-
he tested, went through our testing process
Yeah.
days before your process.
So went through the testing process, however, the job description, which I believe was the process being grieved, stated blatantly that the CPAT, which is the Candidate Physical Agility Test, which is accepted by all IFF and IFC departments as a national standard, was what was stated in the job description for the job posting, which is where the issue comes in. Which, for that reason, you have to support the grievance that the person's making to uphold the process of hiring for the town of East Haddam. For all,
But we could
again,
have avoided it by virtue of having it go through one chain of command. Someone would
absolutely,
have
but
caught
so
that
here's where it
presumably.
differs, because the chain of command for that goes to the union steward, because it involves the contract between the union
I
steward.
mean, the hire wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, right.
The hire.
The point of Rob going and just saying, well,
Oh,
forget the committee, I'm gonna make that decision, and that's essentially
That's
what
my
happened.
point.
I mean, Chiffy reached out to me, she reached out to everybody that was on that panel and said, do you guys wanna re-interview this candidate? It's been 6 months since we last interviewed. And what did I say, Jim?
You agreed with me.
I agreed with you. And then I find out from LT Kolosinski that, oh, we have a new firefighter in our firehouse. No email, no text message, no phone call, and then we find out, This guy doesn't have the credentials.
We ended up getting thrown in the middle of it.
correct.
So my point was
Which wasn't fair to us
simply,
either.
Right.
not the process, it's just that if we had a different chain,
Communication would have been better.
communication, thank you.
Clarity would have been better.
communication.
And unfortunately, it got to a point where it didn't go through that, it was off here, getting dealt with. And then it just joined into, after the fact, by the way, time out,
That was not a good position.
for anybody.
I had jumped into in the middle of that either, because, again, that's part of the reason I had a heart attack, but that's besides the point.
Kevin, did you have a question?
No, I was just gonna say, and Brian got to it actually,
Okay.
it was just going on in a parallel course unbeknownst to the chief. And I think if you had those communications where you needed some way to resolve the problem, you talked through it to say, maybe change the job description, say, hey, we're gonna allow this due to the COVID at this time, then all of this could have been avoided.
Certainly, but you have to
Right.
keep the union in the loop on things.
Right, but all parties have to be engaged
Absolutely,
in
all
conversation, that
parties.
didn't happen.
It's straight up a communication thing.
Absolutely,
That
that's,
would have fixed that whole thing, nobody would have been pissed.
Absolutely, but I think we're kind of beating a dead horse at
Yes.
this point.
But the other part of that is,
But
well, we're not beating a dead horse, because if grievances are gonna be filed on these types of things, we need to discuss how they got to that point and avoid them in the
how do they go
future.
through step one, how do they go through step two?
So it's
Right now,
it's not a dead horse, it's absolutely addressing an issue that happened,
Absolutely.
and it's a direct result of the selectmen making a decision for the fire department, and then melding the two together and saying, it trips the circuit breaker, and says, we got a problem
You
here.
got a surge and trip the breaker. But
Absolutely.
there has to be, and I don't, why the breakdown of communication, why the lack of respect from the selectman's office with the chief of department? Why, what is the breakdown? And
We
again, I
don't
mean,
know.
it seems like that there's no communication with him, and then he can't communicate to his deputy, you can't communicate to his volunteers. The volunteers that are on the bottom, I would even say the career staff. The career staff are sitting there going, what the hell is going on here? And again, whether it's factual or perceived, and perception could be the worst one. Because if there's a perceived mistrust or a lack of communication or people are not working together in the greater good of the organization and it's meeting its mission statement, that's just going to cause chaos throughout the whole organization. And right now with the lack of volunteers, you can't have that. You need to have unity. You need to have togetherness, teamwork, team building. And that starts right at the top. And the top in this case sounds like it's at the selectmen's feet.
So from from a selectman's point of view, you can see how if we don't have the proper channel, I think you're in agreement with us that these are the kind of things that can happen and they can be avoided. They can be avoided. You bailed us out on Friday, thank you very much, because we had no coverage in our town.
Right.
And
Friday.
I think a strongly worded email should go out to the people that are responsible for that.
But on Friday.
So, Friday, we had, no coverage by the career staff. I had one guy that, took a personal or sick day. And the other guy was actually myself, who couldn't make it. I had 2 doctor's appointments for an ongoing issue that I have, or have, that I had to make. Needless to say.
Was it one of those days you got barraged?
I went
We had an accident first thing in the morning.
It's Friday.
Okay, 2 calls. And, you know, like I said earlier, I worked 48 hours last week in Meriden, previous week the same thing. I worked 4 days here 2 weeks ago in East Haddam, and I had the opportunity to make 2 doctor's appointments last Friday. My health is important, as I'm sure you know, because after suffering a heart attack.
I was just gonna say, you don't know how important it is.
So I called out, if you will, dropped the shift, however you want to call it. And then the other individual took a personal or sick day, I honestly don't remember what it was, which left us a vacancy during the day. I did send an email out to the ambulance board of director president, Lori DeQuilla. She said that she was going to reach out to see if she could find coverage for the ambulance side. And then I also had a text message conversation with the chief Thursday night as well. He was also included in that email to Lori. But I would say I'm going to go out and just basically say I don't feel that the town was actually left uncovered. We do have volunteers.
Well, we were uncovered for paid staff, which is, what we're accustomed to.
Correct.
Absolutely.
And was the individual that took a vacation or sick day, did they know that you were out?
No, not to my knowledge.
So just all,
It just fell that way.
like at 9 o'clock, was it 9 o'clock at night that message went out that town's uncovered tomorrow? It was later in the evening on Thursday.
I believe the email only went out to Chief Walton and Lori DeQuilla.
Okay.
So I got an email by Eric on Thursday, 5/27 at 9:05 p.m. Eric said, please be advised there's no coverage for tomorrow, Friday, 5/28. Further text Kolosinski said he had a doctor's appointment for tomorrow. Full-time firefighter EMT Liam Duncan is on a personal day, and then the next 2 weeks there's a rope rescue class that's going on. Is that happening? Okay, is it this coming week?
Yes, sir. I'm in class tomorrow.
All right. Who approved that?
The class?
Yeah.
That I don't know.
For time off?
So I'm not using time off as in like training time or anything like that, so I can use personal days. I'm also scheduled for a 3-day on, 4-day, 5 days off, 4-day on, 2-day off.
Okay.
Work week.
Also, full-time firefighter EMT Chris Latimer is on vacation.
That was last week in October.
That was last week, but I have a question on that. So how soon can you take vacation? I mean, he's not been here 6 months.
So it is my understanding.
Lou.
Okay.
So in regards to the union contract that allots vacation time, we don't get vacation time until 1 year in per our contract. However, to my understanding, upon the hiring of firefighter Learmer, it was understood between the town, again, using the broad spectrum of the town, I don't know who was involved, the town and firefighter Learmer, that he would be approved for a pre-planned vacation that was lapsed from last year. So he had planned a vacation due to COVID.
Right.
Rescheduled it, and to my understanding, the town had also approved, but I don't know what approved means, but there was an understanding between the town and him.
Okay.
That sounds, there's a classic. So, just let's say the selectman's office or somebody at HR knew about that. That there's a critical communication that should have come down to the chief of department and said, hey, this guy has, and this could have been months ago, they could have said, hey, in the month of May, you're gonna have this gap, and he could have been planning for this, you know, and it wouldn't have mattered if something came up. So it's the little finite things that fall, I mean, I'm preaching.
Yeah, again.
So an LT,
Communication.
the other 4 part-timers, they were working elsewhere, you'd said, right?
Yeah, so
You do the schedule now, correct?
I do it myself, our Lieutenant Warner does it as well.
Okay, so that should have been
So,
a red flag, right?
yeah, so, again, kind of
It happens, but
diving into things, you know, we had 2 guys that the town hired. They recently were, one resigned and the other one, I believe, was let go.
I was gonna ask you about,
Okay.
you
So-
what?
So
Okay.
now you're short on per diem.
So, if I could just kind of lay this out there.
yeah.
When I got hired 8 years ago, we had two guys on. The hours were 7 to 3:30 and 8 to 4:30, is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
thinking back,
Um,
yes.
Split shift.
Yep.
Right, so it was, they had 1 full-timer and the rest of us were part-timers. There were 5 or 6 of us, part-timers and 1 full-timer covering those 2 shifts, Monday through Friday. Today, we're covering 4 positions, 2 6 to 6 and 1 8 to 4:30. The reason why we're covering those shifts is because we have the career staff has, what's that? And we have proven time and time again that having the 4 guys on is beneficial to the people that matter most,
Huge.
which is our citizens, the people that we
97% block.
pay their taxes and in turn pay us.
I am here because we had career staff, I can tell you.
So my personal opinion is with 4 shifts, 4 positions Monday through Friday, and then you go back to 2 positions years back, we need 15 people on the career staff roster to cover those 4 positions. 15, to make sure that those shifts get filled. If I pulled up my June schedule right now for availability for the career staff, everybody in this room would be sick to their stomach.
We can't get pretty, here's the problem with that, and I'm gonna tell you this, I'm preaching the choir, because you know, but the rest of, so there is a finite number of firefighter EMTs that are available, that wanna work per diem in other towns, supplement their income or whatever. The problem is, more and more towns are putting on, whether it be per diem staff, part-timers, or they're actually doing full-timers and needing per diem people to fill vacations, sick, personal time. So when you only have a pool, you think the volunteer pool is hurting? The per diem qualified, and I want to say this, qualified per diem staff, you're hurting, and you're vying against Bosra, Salem, East Haddam, Colchester, you know, soon to be Franklin, putting guys on. Cromwell is just eating people. They're just gobbling everybody up. So you can't get Cromwell. Their career staff has exploded, and their per diem staff has exploded beyond that. So they're gobbling people up. So very difficult to get qualified, trained, capable per diem people. The pool's getting smaller and smaller, just like your volunteer pool. Yeah.
And it's tough, you know, from my perspective, and I'm sure, you know, when the chief and I talk, hey, how are things going? Well, chief, I hate to tell you this, but I have a hole in the schedule, or I have this or that going on. I can hear the frustration in his voice as well, and I'm sure he hears it in mine. And we've had conversations. You know, we've had guys that left the department, career staff guys that were certainly beneficial to us. One reached out to me the other day when we found out that we were posting, and he's like, can I reapply? And I said, absolutely, go ahead and reapply. I hope he does. I truly hope he does. The town has had a chance to hire a few individuals for whatever reason they haven't. One of them would have been my wife. She's certified firefighter. Dan Wallace, who's a volunteer for the department, Matt Manzione, who's also a volunteer. Then one of the guys I work with in Meriden, Captain Brian Petroselli. You know, we didn't hire him. So I don't understand how we're gonna get to the point of getting full coverage, other than coming to our neighbors and saying, hey, Chief Lee, you have anybody that wants to work in East Haddam today?
Yeah.
Which honestly, I feel is coming. Where we're gonna be able to have that ability to cross.
That's just a matter of the guys that wanna work it. Here, so.
It's already happening in the ambulance service for a long
The
time.
problem we're having is, now I'm gonna be honest with you, that in Colchester, we're doing 2,300 runs a year. And our callbacks, career staff callbacks, just in the last 24 hours, have been in 12 times.
Yeah.
2 for structure fires. I mean, they worked their ass off for 4.5 hours today.
Yeah.
They're tired. And I can tell you, when I was on the line and getting called back, you don't want to get called back. You know?
We do it here, especially when we have both buses going out, or last year when we had the fire out at Lake Hayward.
No, I was on shift. Me and Josh were on. Oh, myself and Josh were transporting.
Yeah, the two of them were transporting to Middlesex Hospital. The house fire came in out at Lake Hayward. I was here at a department head meeting. A call came in. I think I was here for like 5 minutes, and I left. And it was myself and Kyle Mosey.
Yeah.
On engine.
That was the arson job, woman?
Yes. Yeah. So it's, you know, luckily we had some, you know, they got back in a timely manner. Some of the volunteers showed up, and probably you guys were first in. Stretching the line and stuff like that. So, you know, for me, for the career staff side, you know, when Mr. Smith basically asked if I could take over overseeing the career staff for a while, I viewed it as an acceptable challenge, and you know, I think that over the course of the last few months, we've accomplished a significant amount of stuff. You know, like I said, the chief and I have had conversations. I shouldn't say a lot, but there's been probably some stuff that probably could have been communicated better to him, or vice versa, or whatever it is, about certain things. But the majority of the stuff, 99.9% of the stuff that we have done has, I think, benefited the department overall, and then also the town itself, the citizens. You know, there's things that we've talked about that probably need to get changed or readdressed or things like that. But first and foremost, we need a clear chain of command for everybody to understand. And like I said, in my 8 years here, every day, every year, every selectman, it changes.
Right.
And to be honest with you, Bruce, I've said it and people have looked at me before. They don't understand how I haven't walked away. The only reason I haven't walked away is because I live in this town, my family receives services from this town, and I care about this town.
All right, well, that's good. And I know a lot of good's happened, but we just got to keep the dialogue open and the communication open, and a lot of these problems would just not occur as long as we, and it's very difficult. There's a lot of moving parts that, gee, did I think of this, did I think of that?
Job descriptions?
So we do. We were actually asked by Rob Smith to rewrite them. We did. I handed them.
Did the chief ever review them before they went to Rob Smith?
No.
Did the
How the
chief
hell
ever
does that
see
happen?
them?
How do people get hired without my input? Well,
Again,
But
we
you-
come back
No,
to
I'm just a guy on the outside, but
I know.
I'm just listening to what's going on.
I was
If I was
asked.
the chief of the department, I would be irate.
So I was asked.
I left once though.
We can't do it again. Can't do it again, man.
To rewrite them and send them in to him. So I did.
Yeah, that's where that.
Okay, so can I ask a question?
Sure.
All right, so let me back up a minute. So again, just for transparency, I am and was the youngest fire commissioner ever elected and put into position in the state of Connecticut. I was 23 years old when appointed to the Board of Fire Commissioners in the town of Deep River. I served 2 terms. It was an eye-opener, huge eye-opener, okay? Got 47 years in the fire service. The tail does not wag the dog. And what I'm hearing here is that things are happening on the outside that are trying to influence what's going on the inside. And again, I will share with you, the former captain used to brag about going to town hall and dictating policy and what they were and were not going to do, or what he was and was not going to do, or how he was going to do it. And I'm going, and everything that came out was, I did this and I did that, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do, I'm saying, how is this even happening? And I'm kind of getting a feeling that maybe some of that is, how much does what goes on during the day never ever go through the chain of command of the department and end up on the feet of the town hall or in this building? And there's no communication, and decisions or policies are being maybe made, maybe decisions are being made that affect the overall organization, the operation of the organization, and aren't being communicated within the chain of command.
Yeah, so that,
Am I off base?
no,
Or?
no, and that's what they're speaking to, is that, you know, basically who's my boss, you know? So, at any rate, there's work to be done at the town hall. There's work to be done amongst us. I've been given a note that says we got a hard stop at 6:45, thank you, Jiffy, and that the live feed got interrupted 20 minutes in, so no visual now, and the camera's down, and it will be fixed and posted by IT tomorrow. So I appreciate very much you coming in, and we got work to do, and I'm glad we got a lot of this stuff out on the table, and thank you very much for being here, because now you can take this to your group and say, we really need to, make it a definite chain of command that needs to be followed, and then a lot of this stuff that happens that upsets people, and as Donnie said, perception is a huge thing, and perception becomes reality. So does anyone else have anything to add before we continue on with our,
Well, I just think one thing. Do you guys agree, and do you agree that you guys should talk about everything before it gets done? I mean, I think that's where the issue is. I think if you guys have that agreement, I mean, it doesn't have to be, put in writing right here, agreement that something happens during the day, you just call the chief, let him know what's going on. Hey, this is what happened. This is what we want to do. Any ideas? It doesn't mean you can't talk to the first selectman when you want to, but it needs to go through him. And do you guys agree with that?
So I believe that we should be communicating wholeheartedly. I think that there's things during the day that affect the career staff. That,
Sure.
Don't have to be given permission for certain things, but at the same time, I also feel that, hey, chief, this is what happened today, this is how we rectify the situation, this is how we did it. Are you okay with it?
So you agree with that?
Which is something that, which
You agree with that, chief? That
So
it
I
goes
put out
backwards?
an email on May 5th, and this was addressed to Robert Smith, Teresa, Carlene, all the career staff, or the career officers, the volunteer officers, and the Board of Fire Commissioners. And on the 5th, I wrote, team, this is a reminder to all officers and the Board of Fire Commissioners. Effective immediately, the purchase of any equipment, uniforms, turnout gear, etc., changes to the interior or exterior of the buildings, moving of apparatus to other stations, and moving of equipment on apparatuses to go through me directly. This will be communicated to me via email and to me only to alleviate debate between parties that are CC'd. I will then disseminate the proposal via email to all Board of Fire Commissioners for their input, and we, Chief/Board of Fire Commissioners, will decide what is best for the department. Any projects that are currently in progress will now follow the latter, i.e. painting Marine 3, which we talked about, and the purchase of a new motor for Marine 3. This is not open for interpretation. This is not a democracy. There is one chief and one chief only, Chief of Department Brian Alt. So that went out. So I think that's pretty clear, cut and dry. And I get what you're saying. So I have to get permission to go get a sandwich or something, but no. Anything that needs to be purchased, though, changes, things in there, we should all be in agreement with that. I need to know what's going on. And I know you're not disagreeing with that, but we've had things come up, Eric, and I think we're past that. I don't think we need to even go into it. And I hope that that's all over, because if it's not, then I'm just being pacified tonight, and I won't have that. So I'm not a dictator, you know that. Me and you have always worked well together. I don't want abrasion between the part-timers. My guys don't want that, clearly. We all want to work together, and I feel it. I feel it when I walk in my own firehouse, and that shit's gonna stop. Like, we're all here to do the same job. So whatever happened before, and whatever perception you have of me, needs to stop. I hired you, Liam, and a lot of the other guys. Open door policy all the time. You guys got a problem? Come talk to me. I'm here for you guys. We've always worked well. And I think that's how it needs to continue.
I agree.
I know, well, we're having an hour and a half conversation about it, so there was clearly some type of issue between both. So that's why I want to get it resolved and move forward.
I don't have an issue with
Yeah.
with you.
I know.
What I have an issue with is just, please, can somebody
Clarify.
clarify?
That's the biggest, I have this in my
Please tell me.
Who is in
Report
charge?
to.
Because in your contract, you got the board of selectmen, you got the commissioners, you got the board of ambulance directors, you got the ambulance chief, you got the fire chief. Like, which is it? And out of 3 selectmen, you said it both. Nobody can answer that question, and we're all tired of it. And that's the problem with this whole thing.
It's not any individual in this room, it's a situation
system.
we're all
No,
facing.
yeah.
This is
Correct.
right, and we gotta figure out how to fix the system. This is a matrix management organization. That's the issue. I work in that, in big pharma. I get it. You have to have very clear lines of delineation and chain of command to have that work successfully. Otherwise, that mom and dad is just not going, I'm not gonna go to mom. I'm gonna go to mom, Uncle Ronnie, you know.
But that's the way it's being set up, though. It's already set up that way.
I know, and that's what we have to rein.
And no fault to these guys. I mean, it's just,
I mean,
it's
I feel
there.
bad for you guys. If I had 17 chiefs who gave 17 answers, it would drive me bloody crazy. So I get where you're coming from. Absolutely. We're all faced with one situation, which is to try to rein this in now. And it's not pointing fingers, we just gotta solve the problem. To me, just.
I think a good move was that executive board meeting when the ambulance came, because we got so much information in one night, like, we needed that information, that was very important.
So that's on my list if you want me to talk about that a little bit.
So Eric, during the day, what are some of these questions that come up? that-
Segue.
that I know that Eric, Chief is sometimes at work and not available. What are some of those questions, and who would be, and this is my ignorance too, who would be the next person in charge after you? I would assume it would be Ray, and are you then available for those questions?
My phone is on 24 hours a day, and
I've
I
always been able
should
to
probably
get
not
a-
answer when I'm with a patient in the latter half of the week, but yeah, I'm always available.
So is everybody then in agreement that this protocol of chief and working your way down the line of command, the way that it should be?
Well, I wrote this thing. I mean, I've always trusted Eric and Ryan to make the right decision in my absence. I mean, I have.
Eric has done that too. I think Eric, is
Correct,
very
but
capable of
certain
making
things
the right
that are
decision.
changes, I have an issue with. I mean, I need to know when trucks are being moved around, or just if I don't answer a text message or to Ray, hey, what do you think about this? We need to get this up here, and it's kind of gone that way.
So
but
are
again,
you okay, Eric Liam, are you okay with doing that?
I have no issue with the chain of command.
We can.
Like I said,
Because this is what we're
I'm
saying.
sitting
This
here
is how it
asking
should
for,
be.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here asking for a chain of command.
This is it.
Yes.
Yeah, this is the chain of command. This is it.
I think your paid guy should talk to you, and you should
You
send it to the
talk
chief.
to-
Because you just said you're overseeing them, and that's great. You're an awesome firefighter, commander, everything else. You have it all, and that everybody should go through you. You go through him, and then nobody has to get in the middle. And if it's a selectman issue, they'll call him up later and say, hey, this is an issue that has to do with first selectman.
So Eric, you've always made great decisions.
Yeah, great.
And I think that the way you handle things are right on, except for the chain of command. And you have not been really clear as to what that chain of command has been. It's been confusing. today is it's not confusing right now. Right now, from today, we're saying what the chain of command is.
But it needs to come from the top.
Right.
Well, we're gonna do our best. Now, there are no guarantees, but without even him agreeing with this right now, you know what your chain of command is.
Right.
There's no reason for you not to go by what that policy or is.
This is until it's written down, this is a verbal of, this is how it's gonna work.
It sounds to me,
And there
Jimmy,
may
has
not
some
be anything
contract
written
language
down.
that needs to get cleaned up possibly.
Yes.
potentially.
Chief, do you guys have do you guys have your chain of command laid out in your union contract? And anything like that, or is that just all SOG based?
That's SOP, SOG, Department of Policy, yeah. That's what I'm saying.
So even if
Policies,
it's not
directives, and
written down,
guidelines.
you should
Absolutely.
follow
Yeah,
those.
Correct.
And that may be causing, it's almost like you were set up for failure by, and I know,
Boy, howdy.
yeah.
Right.
And I feel for you, I do, like I said.
All right, well, thank you.
But
Well,
again,
let's
this can-
rectify
this
this
can
as it goes on. Let's make this a
Let's
starting
make this
point.
work,
Yeah.
and we're getting closer every meeting that we have. We seem to be able to get a little more out on the table and understand a little bit more about each other's perception. And Donnie, I appreciate very much your time coming in. Thank you guys for being here, because without you guys being here, we wouldn't have been able to get this much out on the table. You very much for being here, so thank you.
Step in the right direction.
All right, so we've got a hard stop, so we've got to get back to our agenda. And our next order of business is Fire Chief's report.
All right, so I think I spoke a boatload tonight, so there's just a couple things. We did have a meeting with Lori and crew on 5/26 at our executive board meeting. Good meeting. Two of the bigger issues that were discussed between Lori and the executive board, and Bruce, you were present, as well as Jiffy, who was in charge of the career staff, which I think we beat right down. Again, multiple people in charge of the staff: Selectmen, Fire Chief, Ambulance Chief, Board of Fire Commissioners, Ambulance Board, career officers. It needs to be clearly defined, right? Bruce, you did have a conversation, and I spoke about this at that meeting with Rob Smith, where Rob had asked who should be in charge of the career staff, and you had stated the fire chief. There was a conversation, I guess, that was supposed to happen between Rob and the career staff on the topic, without any fire officers bearing witness to it. There was apparently nobody had any idea if it even happened, so we're not even sure if that did happen. But I think we definitely, after tonight's meeting, need to revisit that. The second part was the ambulance being housed at Company 1 Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And I brought that up, and obviously I advocate for that because our people are first in this town. As of now, most of you know, the Ambulance Association, as well as the Selectmen, will not allow the ambulance to be placed at Company 2 during the working hours of 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. The career staff is to leave Company 2 with a truck, pickup truck, one of our town vehicles, go to the scene, the ambulance, while the other person goes and picks up the ambulance. You're delaying patient care, clearly. And, spoke about that in length to Lori. I think she got the message, but she had assured me again that she would be talking about that at the board meeting. And we need to continue to follow up because I think it's ludicrous. The association's reason for this is because they feel the career staff is not securing the ambulance while they're out of quarters, and it is not in the contract to be at Company 2. We talked about Jim Santa Croce's email. I read that to them. From Jim, as we spoke about on Wednesday, ambulance base is listed with the OEMS at the Town Street Firehouse address. If this unit were to be relocated and temporarily posted at another location in town during the day and returned, nothing official needs to be done. So,
right,
we're
thank
playing
you.
games.
All right,
with
so we'll work on that, making the
To
ambulance.
clarify, that letter from Jim,
Yeah.
you said?
Yep.
So if we relocate it, it's based off my understanding what you just said, is that nothing needs to be done.
Nothing.
Correct.
Right here, I'll make a copy of it. I'll send it to
Do it
you.
all the time.
What?
Nothing needs to be
Temporary
done.
relocation during the day.
I have it right here.
I'm
Unless it's a permanent move.
If it's
then
a
you have
permanent
to bring it
move,
to
he
the
went on to say
Been doing it for 25 years.
Didn't Lieutenant Warner?
Yeah. if you
However,
just send that out,
there is a process with OEMS to add a branch location,
Correct.
but we're not doing that. Okay, so every ambulance, I told Lori this, every ambulance service, AMR, Hunters, American, you would have to post a street corner
Right.
throughout with OEMS. That's not what we're doing.
Garner Lake moves their ambulance over to Salem all the
Right.
time.
And again, the board's reason was what she said was the doors are found unlocked and the ambulance is placed outside, and we already discussed that, but that's not a reason to go ahead and say,
So, I guess my follow, again, I don't wanna, obviously we're pressed for time, but my follow-up question to her would have been, how do you know that we weren't cleaning the ambulance or going through it or doing something else?
correct, and you guys had that conversation, this was going back a while now, right? That, and I assured her that we were gonna, fix that issue. I mean, there's no reason, we,
Another perception.
right,
Yeah.
we follow up and,
Perception
we
thing.
make sure it's locked up.
Yeah, if you could email that to us, Brian, that'd be great to have on record.
So,
Yes.
and this is no knock on anybody here in this room, but you're adding about, and I work from home, so I hear the calls during the day. So one day I was on, I was multitasking, I was listening. From the time the tone comes out to the time the ambulance rolls is about 5 or 6 minutes added to response time.
There's-
Or
there's-
the ambulance hits the road to respond.
It's clear
And
as
that's-
how.
How's your heart gonna take that, Donnie?
Well, I will tell you that the doctor at Marlboro said if I wasn't in the right place at the right time, I wouldn't be here right now. They rolled me up and put defib pads on my
Good.
back.
Time is important, so, all right, so,
We work on that.
That's an easy win.
Correct. I did talk to Newt about the monitors. We're getting 3, 2 for company 1, 2 for company 2 and 1 for company 1 for active 911 and 1 for the cameras. And Eric, we talked about where we wanted to place them, and I think that's great. So we can all, see who's coming to the stations and obviously watch in real time who's outside the building. The other thing that came up too, Liam, I know this was going back and forth from Colchester, when it comes to bringing the juniors in the burn building, that has been going on, and I let the commissioners know, that we've been doing that for years. Obviously, I read up, it's a big no-no.
Yeah.
And we typically would bring them in, we did that, like I said, almost 20 years ago. Bring them in towards the end of the night, just to give them some experience, but again, looking at everything as a whole, we're not gonna be going through that again. So did you wanna add to that at all?
No, again, it's just a concern of mine. I mean, I don't want anybody here to get tied up in anything.
Yeah.
It's a huge, he sprains his ankle. I mean, just doing that, it just becomes a big headache that I don't think any of us intend on having or want to happen.
Correct.
So it's just a safety concern, so.
Yeah, I read up on it, there was a whole thing, even talked to Donnie on the powers to be in Colchester, but yeah. Another learning curve, so.
thank you. Anything else, chief?
That's it, that's all I got.
Okay, next, fire marshal's report, none. Building report, bathroom locks, are they in place now? Anybody know?
I have not heard.
Oh, no?
Last I heard, the bathroom locks at Company 1 were on order from Shagbarks.
Yeah.
I don't know if they've come in or not.
All right, so can you
Bob
check
said he
that?
did it
You
last
can
week.
physically go down there and check that, right?
Yep,
And then look in the key box and see if there's a key.
Yep, I'll check it
Didn't
through.
they lose the key and that's why we had to change them again or something like that?
No, I remember Bob saying last week that he changed them all to the pin type, so there's no key needed. It is strictly paperclip.
Okay, so it's privacy,
They are done.
privacy lock.
That's what he said.
Okay,
I'll
all
go
right,
check.
so-
I haven't physically checked.
All right, so just
I'll
you'll
check it out.
confirm that physically, you'll go down there and check that for us, so we have that answer for next time.
Yep.
And the floor, I'm gonna recommend that to Newt, that the floor be cemented and the tile be placed.
Can you hit the motor thing real quick?
We're hitting that next.
Okay.
Equipment report. The outboard motor. We need an outboard motor for the John boat, and if I'm speaking out of, if I don't hit what you're getting at, I'm gonna recommend that we set aside $5,500, $5,500, if we have the money left in the budget by the end of the month, to purchase the motor that's appropriate for the boat and that's approved by both the manufacturer of the boat and the motor. It looks to me like it's a 25 horsepower motor that's been recommended long shaft, Evinrude. and it is in stock. So if we wanna get it, we can get it. Okay, so I would make a motion to that effect, to set that money aside so we can purchase that if we have money left over.
After next Tuesday's submissions, yes.
Okay, so do you
I make that.
Second.
second, and any discussion?
Oh,
Oh.
other than we let Ray take care of making those arrangements.
Right, that's the next thing. Are you,
I'm willing.
did we touch on all the items that,
All I'm gonna need is a tax certificate.
okay, you can get that through Cindy, right?
Cindy, yep.
All right, any other discussion on the matter? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes. Correspondence, do we have any?
None.
NUN, none. New business.
None, I love it.
New business. Any new business? We certainly touched on a lot of stuff.
Oh, Ray's got something there.
Do we wanna talk about iPads?
Yeah, might as well throw it out there now, real quick.
We've got 5 minutes to talk
Four and a
about it.
half
Okay,
minutes.
so real quick, there's two ways we can go about it. We can get it through FirstNet, which is where it will have cellular, it'll have data, so we could use Active 911, which has all the pre-plans in it and all that stuff. So it's a mobile dabble MDT of sorts that they can use, and it's also for use with the Target Solutions, which is how we do our truck checks and tracking of maintenance and everything.
Yeah.
The benefit of doing it with them through FirstNet, as opposed to buying it from Best Buy, is accessibility to wireless. So it's a $40 a month plan, and the
$400.
$40.
40
Say,
for
okay.
customers, and anywhere from $11 a month up to $53 a month, depending on what unit we buy for an iPad. And that can all be determined, if it's something we want to further look into.
And we need 3, you're thinking?
So, let me just support that.
Yeah,
These are huge, you're talking about putting them in the rigs or just.
Absolutely,
Alright,
and have availability
so-
for
Yeah.
Jerry Boynton to get in and do his truck
Sure.
checks.
So to piggyback on that, right, this is a huge common practice throughout, Connecticut as well as the rest of the United States. It's a great tool for the officer in the front seat to be looking at the CAD notes and everything else that's going on with Active 911 as it comes in. As you guys will see with structure fires or technical rescues or other larger scale incidents, you'll see the dispatchers from Valley Shore update the CAD, and as this is happening, you'll get live stream notifications right to that, so you can see, first call went out at, we'll say, 1800 was the first call for a fire. At 1805, they just received 3 more phone calls, so you can kind of plan your job and your tasks as you're going down the road to further better your service. So it's a pre-plan for that, as well as giving a map and directions right off the rip around town. I mean, most of us are pretty squared away on every road in East Haddam. I think it's something that we all pride ourselves on being able to not use a map or anything like that to get to where we're going in a rapid time. But having that ability in case you go at 2 in the morning, I forgot where Grove Street is. Sorry, Jim. But
Oh well, gotta go.
yeah, God forbid you forget where it is. It's right there on your screen, right there for you to see.
All right, so what do you need then from us?
I guess just permission to move forward with it a little bit more, because I got to contact with FirstNet and be able to provide, we're a municipality.
How many are you looking for?
2, right?
2, I'm saying 2, 1 for each house for now.
That's a good start.
So literally it would be not to exceed 40 and
Because you gotta get a
80 bucks a month.
I mean, you
As
gotta include that.
because it would be a recurring bill
Of $40.
of 40
Times
bucks
2.
plus the whatever, not to exceed like another 40 bucks in unit per unit per iPad for each apparatus.
So you're looking at 2, so it'd be 40.
Yeah, we'll add
times
into
2,
it, yeah.
$80 a month.
Okay.
So it's a 30-month payment plan. After the 30 months, your bill comes down whatever your extra payment is. So
Okay.
it'd be $40 a month after 30 months,
Okay.
and you own the iPad or we can buy it outright for $1,100,
All right,
depending on which one we
That
want.
includes the tugboat covers, right?
No.
Get you-
Those are a one-time payment though.
Yeah, they really are, and I'm sorry I did not get enough time, there was not enough time for me today to.
Okay.
You gotta get the charger, mount on the apparatus, so you can. I got 14 of them, and all our new apparatus are all getting the mountable chargers, so you just take the iPad and on the dashboard and it's charging up and good to go.
Maybe we should table it for now.
2 minutes.
If needed, we can do a special meeting
I'll-
if we need to.
I'm sorry?
We got 2 minutes left.
Yeah, I know it. All right, so we're gonna continue this, discussion on the iPads.
Awesome.
Any other new business? Next is adjournment.
I make a motion to adjourn. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to adjourn on our hard stop, and I think we're right on the button, so thank you, everybody. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
You need this back?
You don't go out for breakfast anymore.
Donnie, thanks a million, huh?
One thing I like about that motor,
We've been a little busy.
I don't know if you looked at
A
it,
little bit.
it's,
You know, we need to.
it's almost like a hybrid jet
Preschool and primary.
but it has a reverse.
Very much.
So when you get it, hit in it, you put it in reverse,
It's like a flush.
you just put it in reverse, then start again.
Yeah.
Who's gonna do that?
I didn't work here.
It's ever revealing. Yes, I know they're on
What?
business.
You can have them. I was gonna pay them all and hand them to you on the way out.
They
But,
said they put it up that they're gonna have it for 25 years. So,
I always waste my money. You know my wife.
There's nothing we can't overcome. We're all professionals.